I'm pressing go live.
Go live.
Sorry, I should have said, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm as ready as I'll ever be, Alice. Let's do it.
Hang on, I'll ask. We might be live. I'm going to double check with the ground crew if we're live. Yes, we are live. Excellent. Welcome. Welcome to the two Alices Have a Chat.
Alice and Alice have a chat.
Which I appreciate. I think I've got a name that it's rare enough that there's not that many Alices that I know and that I remember them, but that we're not like a zebra in a stream of horses. There's a lot of us out there, right?
Yeah.
Alices.
Well, there are, as you say, it's not such a rare name that people go, oh, I've never heard that name before, but it's rare enough that when I hear someone else is called Alice in my vicinity, I gravitate towards them, as I did with you when we first met, right?
I think we were at maybe the Victorian Healthy Eating Enterprise, and someone was like, Alice is working on that. And I'm like, am I? Am I? Oh, there's another Alice here.
No, I know. And we both just came together, and ever since it's just, it's a delight. It's a delight to chat to you, and to anytime I see your name in my inbox, it's exciting. Not only because it's my name, but also because it's your name.
Yeah, exactly. Our shared love of our names.
Yes.
So welcome to the Parents' Voice Facebook live stream book chat with Alice and Alice. And Alice, I forget to double check with you how I pronounce your last name before we started. I'm really embarrassed. So Zaslavsky.
Okay. Close. So when I was a teacher, I used to say to my students, just think Zas loves to ski. Zaslavsky.
Zaslavsky.
Close. That'll do. But that's why people call me Alice in frames, or just Alice. I'm happy with anything. Miss Z is what I used to go by when I was a teacher.
I really should have practiced though. I'm embarrassed. I need to improve my facilitation of these chats.
Yeah,
and ensure that I've got pronunciation of names down first, because it's not that hard, Alice. I should have nailed that one. But let's move on. We'll segue nicely away from my awkwardness with names, and talk about why you're here, and let's start with what's your first memories of cooking? What's inspired your love of food and cooking?
That's a very good question, and it comes up a lot. And I know that a lot of people have those kind of pinpoint moments where they say, oh, this is, I was cooking with my grandma, or blah, blah, blah. But I can't think of a time when I wasn't cooking at home with my family. I was always handed a spatula, or I was always out in the garden with my grandfather, who had a dacha, like a weekender in the Soviet Union. So food was always a part of our lives, but I wouldn't say that we were like bougie foodies. I would just say that being Georgian, being of Russian Jewish heritage, food is just something that we talk about from breakfast all the way through to going to bed and saying, what are we having for breakfast the next day? It's just part of our DNA, I think.
I think that's lovely though. I spent many of my teenage years working in a deli, which as a vegetarian is a bit of a challenge. But I think that's for me one of my inspirations around food, just like getting to try all the foods all the time.
Totally.
And having to provide advice to people who had the latest recipe from the age good food. They'd brought it in from the weekend, and they're like, we've got all these random ingredients that tells us that the deli should have it, and we'd have to figure it all out for them. But it was an exploration of food, and I appreciate that part of my life.
That's awesome.
So you're here to talk about your book that's coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called? What's it about?
It's called, it's what's on the box is what's in the box. So it's called In Praise of Veg, and it's close to 500 pages in praise of vegetables. And the reason why, yay! And I'm just so excited about it, Alice. I can't wait for people to see it. I can't wait to have it. It's available for pre-order now, and it's gone gangbusters as pre-order, because I think that everyone's ready to eat more veg. Everyone's ready to see veg in a different way, and I'm just kind of the custodian of the knowledge, and I just want to share as much of it as possible. We got to a point where we had to cull pages, and that was the most painful thing. It was really kill your darlings, like, oh, this has to go, but I saved it for Instagram posts or something later, because there's just so much more to say about veg. And that's the thing, you know, you mentioned before that there's always something new to discover. And even for me, having lived and breathed food, and particularly fresh food, for close to a decade now, you know, professionally, I'm still discovering new ingredients and I'm still getting excited every day. So I love that I can share that excitement with everyone through this book.
I have to say, I mean, I'm excited because I know you and I love vegetables and I know it's going to be a great book. So you said you had to cull pages. Did any vegetables not make the cut?
Well, celeriac almost got cut, but I had to campaign for celeriac and say, hello, particularly vegetable loving people who love vegetables love celeriac. So there was no way that I was going to let that one slide. I made sure that at the very least, because there's actually, even though there are 75 vegetable entries, there are actually also, let me get this headphone, Zoom time, classic. There are also another, say, 50 odd veg that are like beyond what we're talking about. So, you know, if you like avocado, have you thought about bitter melon? It's also got a you know, rough skin, but a very different flavor to avocado.
Yeah, it's like, warning, don't try bitter melon if you're expecting it to taste like avocado, but
don't smash bitter melon on your toast, but they're both good.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm falling more in love with the idea of this book as we talk, Alice. And so you mentioned, you know, people are just kind of ready for vegetables. Is there anything that makes vegetables really special to you? Like what made you go, you know what, the world needs this book that's just about vegetables?
Well, for me, growing up in Georgia, our cuisine is very vegetable heavy. We start with a vegetable-based breakfast. You know, there would be fresh vegetables on the table, like cucumber slices and tomatoes and radish and capsicum, and basically any sort of crudité style veg would be on the table and eaten. Then there'd be things like sautéed green beans with garlic and walnuts, and a lot of the way that Georgians eat is it's like a feast. So there are lots of little dishes, and it's not kind of course by course. It's just everything out on the table. And then once that's cleared, oh yeah, there's more. so and a lot of that is just delicious vegetables. And if there's one thing that I've learned from Georgian cooking, it's that if you add garlic and fresh coriander and ground coriander, maybe some fenugreek if you've got it. If you don't, life goes on, use some curry powder. Any vegetable can taste good. So that's kind of the key there. But what I discovered, especially through my work within the food literacy space and within kind of food education advocacy, it's that in this country, and which is not dissimilar to other countries around the world, there is a huge disconnect and a huge discrepancy between our expectation of kids' vegetable intake and how much they're eating. So it sits around sort of 5% of kids getting their recommended daily intake of veg. But what you'll find is that children don't understand the notion of like 5 and 2, or, you know, if you eat these vegetables, they will make you feel better. Those sorts of things just kind of, they parrot them back because they know that that will make us stop talking to them about it, but they don't necessarily understand what it is that we're talking about. They're very immediate and very black and white and concrete in their thinking. So when it came time for me to write this book, my first book was actually a book for kids about food, Alice's Food A to Z, which you would have enjoyed, Alice.
But just been like, oh, it's like I've written my own book to myself with all this knowledge I didn't know I had.
Exactly. Just stick your photo over mine. Nailed it. So this time around, I wanted to write the companion text, I suppose, to that, but also something that would springboard from my work with Phenomenon, which Parents' Voice members would be familiar with because you voted us your best healthy eating campaign of 2018 for parents, the Parents' Voice Fame and Shame Awards. Yes. We were clearly fame.
And can I say that you like smashed the field there too? Like you're like the runaway success that year.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully that happens again. So I don't know if you can like re-enter, but we've got more resources coming as part of the Good Mood Food campaign that Hort are running at the moment. We've got a whole Good Mood Food module coming out for schools and for parents and kids at home. So keep an eye on that one. That's a sneak peek for you.
Bit of rebadging, Phenomenon 2.0.
I would say Phenomenon Phenomenon 3.0, and we are looking to rename Phenomenon as well, because as much as I love a pun and I love an obscure name, every time you put it into Google, it wants to correct you, and it's really frustrating. So we've decided, better to go with the stream and just get a new name going. So if anyone is watching and thinking, I've got a new name for you and it's a really good one, please reach out, tell me, we're desperate. We need a new name. So
I can think that every time we've put it in a document and then someone's proofed it for us, they're like, you've spelt this wrong. And we're like, we haven't. That's what it's called. So I understand.
Yeah. Thank you.
We've had the small pain of it, but you running the program must have had that times.
Totally, yeah. And it's a pain in the tuchus, because for me, the program is completely free and it's completely designed to be picked up by as many people as possible. Whether you're a kid enjoying the animated videos, whether you're a parent that's enjoying listening to the nomcasts with your kids, or whether you're a teacher that's looking for really good quality resources across every single subject. So if you're looking for really good numeracy and literacy resources, we have them for you through the lens of food. So the fact that people can't find us is a bit of a hurdle that we are very ready to jump over.
Yeah. Well, and I often think it must be so hard to name something these days when you've got to think about how people are Googling it.
Oh,
I need to buy a new saute pan or something, a deep fry pan of some description that comes with a lid.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, local shopping centre has house. Everything's closed, lockdown here in Melbourne. And so I went to Google it. You can't just type in house. That's not going to bring up the shop that you're looking for. So I had to think about the things that they sell and put that, because I have no idea what their web address is.
Yeah.
And it made me think about, it was such an obvious name for them before the internet existed. But now it's actually quite a hard one.
Totally. Yeah, it's definitely hard, because you've got to think about something that's that's memorable, that hasn't been used yet, and is still able to be found online. So yeah, it's a task, but we're getting to some form of shortlist. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully the new one. At the very least, we've got the Good Mood Food module presented by Edible Adventures Productions, which is us in association with Hort Innovation, who are our wonderful sponsors of the program. Again, I can't stress enough, this is 100% free. We're not trying to sell you anything. Just go and use it, because it's really freaking good. So, and just tell me how much you love it, because I love receiving those sorts of emails and messages telling me from parents and teachers, and even photos of kids watching the webcast, the webisodes as well. So anyway, enough about Phenomenon. The reason why I brought it up, there is a reason beyond just shamelessly plugging it to the target audience. Phenomenon identified for me that beyond the disconnect and the kind of what's the word I'm looking for, the deficit within the intake of kids with their vegetable intake, it also meant that there might be a disconnect or a deficit in the knowledge of parents and families of how to actually cook vegetables in the first place. It's one thing for us to open kids' minds to enjoying vegetables through the program, which is exactly what we're doing. We've got, $500,000 worth of research showing that there is potential for impact with this program. But in order for parents to slam dunk that veg, it needs to be delicious at the table. So this book very much is not only recipes, it's also talking about the principles of the principles and hacks that will lead you to every night of the week, midweek, or even if it's just a Sunday project, you can cook vegetables better than you already do. Whether it's like through a recipe, or there's also, and you'll love this because I know how busy you are, there's a vegetable matrix, and it's like a spreadsheet that tells you if this, if you've got very little time, but you want something light and bright and you've got this vegetable, this is what you can do.
Oh, I love it. I mean, so when I first moved out, my mum got me Stephanie Alexander's, like the Cook's Companion, right?
Yep.
And I feel like this has a similar idea in that I'd have like 3 lemons, and I'd be like, what can I do with lemons?
Totally.
But like you put it in a spreadsheet, I don't have to leaf through the whole document to find the recipe.
Yes.
Oh, that makes
it so
easier.
And I wrote the book for me ultimately, because I'm going back into my Dropbox to find the vegetable matrix to remind myself of how long to cook that vegetable. But what I've also done is I very nicely requested from my publisher that there is a bookmark, and it's hot pink, and I want you to put that bookmark on the vegetable matrix pages so that you don't have to flip around to try and find it. It's just always there, and you can just go bam, search engine optimized.
Search engine optimized.
Yes.
In a physical form.
Exactly. Love it.
Okay, I need to keep interviewing you and not getting excited about the book, although I suppose that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for.
So you talked you've talked a bit about the motivations of the book, and really, is that impact that you're hoping it have? Is it about that kind of inspiring not just kids, but like the whole gamut of people about vegetables?
That's right. Everyone is a family, right? Whether it's a nuclear family or whether it's the family of the family that you choose, your friends, we're always connecting over food, and we can always know more. And to me, I just think that there is so much more to learn about vegetables. In terms of cooking, sometimes the barrier to consumption is cost. And vegetables are inexpensive and nutritious and delicious. So they might be the gateway to you cooking even more once you actually know what to do with them. And very often you'll find at greengrocers or even at supermarkets now, you've got the section of fresh food that's reduced because it's slightly out of date or because the leaves are slightly wilty, but there's still so much that you can do. And that really resonates for me, because when I was growing up, when we moved to Australia, I was 6.5, 7 years old, and we came here with nothing. And we, until my parents found work, it was very difficult for them. And even when they did find work, trying to reestablish yourself in a new country, it's a very relatable migrant story, I'm sure. But one of the things that Mum would do is that she would go to the greengrocers, she would go to that section with the wilty veg, pick out some root vegetables, pick out some brassicas and things, and she would cook up a big pot of borscht on a Sunday night, and that would be like a vegetable soup. It's called borscht normally because it's got beetroot or some sort of red element, whether it's tomato or borscht with beetroot is my favorite. And that would be my afternoon snack when I got home from school every day. I'd zap a bowl of that in the microwave and I'd eat that, and it would be great because it's kind of like, gone. I didn't think about the fact that that was also Mum's way of getting however many serves of veg into us every day, but it was also so accessible and inexpensive for her to do that. For us, fast food was very much a treat because it was expensive. So fresh food, because she had the skills, that was where she would go. And so I'd really like to make this as inclusive and accessible as possible for people, because I think that a lot of the time, especially with cookbooks, we can get a little bit hoity-toity. You're right. A lot of the recipes that people get from magazines and from newspapers use ingredients that we don't necessarily have access to every day. And we buy them and then they sit in our pantries and we never use them. And then they go out of date and we look at them 10 years later and go, why did I buy tinned artichokes? What? Like, why is there tinned asparagus in here? Or, why have I got a once used jar of chipotle spice or whatever it is? So I'm trying to find as many ways to remove the barriers, to encourage people to cook, take away the excuses, and offer as many rewards as possible. And the number one reward is that it is delicious. That's it.
And it is that skill gap, isn't it? I mean, there's actually a lot of research that's been done here in Australia around eating a healthy diet, like a bed of words, that's good, that's high in fresh fruits and vegetables, is actually cheaper than eating highly processed foods that are full with those cheap ingredients, but the problem is, if you don't know how to cook a vegetable, it doesn't matter how much cheaper it is. You don't really have those other options. You kind of have to go with something that's already ready, prepared for you. Right?
Exactly. Yes. So skills, 100%, is a gap that is continuing. We're trying to find those solutions. That's part of why we're on the V, right? That's part of why I sit on these round tables, because we're trying to have a human-centric approach and solution to a systems problem.
Exactly. We're working it in so many different angles, and one of the angles is your inspiring cookbook.
Thanks.
So
I like the way that you're bringing it back. I'm off my soapbox for a brief moment, but you're right. I think that the cookbook for me is like a trickle down effect, and it is an exquisite gift offering, is the way that the publisher is describing it, because I think that it is a perfect gift for Christmas time, for if someone moving out of home, for anyone that loves food, I think is going to get something out of this book. But even someone that doesn't necessarily love food and certainly doesn't necessarily love vegetables, if they're learning to cook, then this is going to open up their mind in so many ways. So, and it just looks good. I think it's just like at the crux of it, it's also a great coffee table book. So it's a good one. And I'm hoping, you know, at the moment, Booktopia has it at 20% off, sometimes 25% off. So if you are looking to pre-order, and if cost is a barrier to you, then, you know, pre-ordering might be the time to grab a bargain.
Have you seen it in print yet? Like,
No.
No.
I can't wait. All I've seen the Dropbox images. I've seen a flick through from my publisher that I wasn't supposed to see, that because they've got it in Sydney, but I'm waiting any day now. I'm going to receive my copy, and I know they've given me the dimensions. It's an absolute brick of a book. So 500 pages of like hardback. And you're right. To me, it's the kind of book that I would love to see sitting next to the Cook's Companion, and sitting next to, but also sitting next to your pots, your actual cooking implements, because you're using it, not just looking at it and flicking through and saying, oh, that's a good idea, and never doing it. Very kind of accessible, relatable midweek food.
And so, like, important questions now.
Mm-hmm.
Can you pick out a favorite vegetable, like, for yourself?
It depends on the season. So if you'd asked me in summer, I would 100% say tomatoes. I just love tomatoes. There's nothing like biting into a tomato on a summer's day. I'm stealing that quote actually from one of the chefs in the book. So one of the things that I haven't even mentioned that the book has is I sought out quotes from some of my favorite chefs in the world. So there's close to 60 of the best chefs in the world talking about their favorite ways to use vegetables. And I wanted to do that because a few years ago, I did this kind of social media everyday thing. What do you call those? Everyday challenge called 365 Days of Vegetables. And every day I was trying to find an inspirational quote about the vegetable that I was posting. And for a lot of them, all of the quotes were quite negative. You know, talking about the fartiness of artichokes, or talking about the stinkiness of cabbage. And it was hard for me to cut through that and find a new way to talk about vegetables. So I've just made that happen. I've pressed the people that I think would have some beautiful things to say, and they really have. You know, some of the poetic ways that people like Ben Shuri, like Dan Barber, like Anna Roche, and like Sky Gingell in the UK, and Sat Baines. I'm just rattling off names just in case people are chef people. But basically it's just Guy Grossi. That's someone. George is in there. Who else? There's plenty of kind of Melbourne based, lots of cool. My favorite.
I was captured by the quote from Nigella on the front on the front of the book, which is not about vegetables but about you. And I mean, because it's all about me, I was like, I'm now one person removed from Nigella Lawson.
Yeah, I will be dining out. I will be dining out on that endorsement, I think, for the rest of my life. Put that on my tombstone.
It's for no other reason. Like, it's an inspiring read about vegetables with lots of recipes and ideas and thoughts, also endorsed by Nigella Lawson. So, I mean, how can people turn that down?
Thank you. But I feel like the reason why Nigella and I really resonate, and we've spent a bit of time chatting on stage and obviously backstage as well, but what I really love about her is that she insists on everyone seeing that she is a cook, not a chef, because I think that the way that she cooks is very much designed for the every person, and it's to bring people in. And that notion of inclusivity rather than exclusivity is something that I think that everyone in food should be thinking about, because that's the way that we're going to inspire people. Because if we keep talking about things that people can't do or shouldn't do or won't do, then they won't do them. So let's be positive and hopeful and empower people as much as possible.
I agree. And I think just it's a similar attitude, I think, comes through around the enjoyment of food. You know, similar attitude in terms of the attitude you have, but also Nigella, that just the love of food and enjoying it, and that being really core to preparing and eating, right? Sitting around with friends and eating food together. Enjoying it.
Totally. I read a research paper just last week talking about the fact that we need to remove the mutual exclusivity of hedonism and health. We need to see that good food is pleasurable, is something that we can delight in, and fetishize it if we need to, if that's what it's going to take. You know, have you ever seen a tomato glistening in the sun? Have you ever cut into a cucumber that's so juicy and just kind of, you know, when you cut into it, you hear the crunch? And then when you bite into it and it's just sweet and fresh and vibrant, that's what we should be encouraging people to talk about food in those kind of terms. Move away, I think, from kind of concrete nutrition-based didactic messaging as much as possible.
I agree. And so I've had a couple of questions sent through because we've only got 6 minutes left. Too busy talking. So from Angela, she was wondering, will she be able to find all the vegetables in your book like at her local Coles, like at her local supermarket?
Angela, what a question. I'm really glad
and then
answer that. Can I answer Angela's question first?
And she had a second kind of follow-up, which was just like, where in your opinion would be is the best place to discover new and unique vegetables?
Great. Okay, so I'll answer question 1 first, and then I'll go to question 2. Question 1, I'm really glad that you asked me that, because I was just saying to Nick, my husband, this morning, that this lockdown has meant that, because we're in Victoria, so it's meant that for us, there is only, there's a farm gate and there's a Woolworths that's in our 5-kilometre radius. So for the first time, we, the bougie foodies, cannot access food in any other place. So that has been really eye-opening for me and a real challenge. And in a way, I actually think that it's improved the way that I think about food. So when I create recipes for News Breakfast, I'm really conscious of not using ingredients that aren't accessible at the supermarket, because I recognize that 70, if not 80 cents to the dollar of food sales are spent in, one of the big 2 or the big 3. So I think that there is definitely pretty much all of the vegetables at some point or other. Hopefully, if we continue, we can vote with our dollar and we can continue, asking our supermarkets for these vegetables, we'll be able to access them. But I'm seeing, what's really heartening for me, even at that supermarket that's in our radius, I'm seeing a lot of ingredients that I didn't expect to see there. So I think that people are becoming a lot more food literate and a lot more curious about trying new ingredients. So that's really fantastic. If you are looking to open your horizons, Angela and others, and if you do want to try new veg, do seek out local organic or local fruit and vegetable boxes. Do support community supported agriculture schemes, so CSAs. What you can do is you can pop into your search engine the suburb that you're in and CSA or farm, vegetable farm or whatever, and you will find that there are deliveries servicing every suburb, including your own. So it's just, if you aren't sure, then get in touch with your local farmers market as well and ask them. Just kind of, we live in the information age, and if there's anything that this lockdown and that COVID has shown us, it's actually that this world is much smaller than we think, and that where there's a will, there's a way. So if we're getting deliveries here from all over the place, like there are these hazelnuts that I voted. So one of my kind of roles is as champion food judge. So I judge a bunch of different sort of food shows and champion food competitions. So one of them, the Fine Food Awards through the Royal Melbourne Show, a few years ago, that was a long lead up, but the champion, ultimate grand supreme champion, were these hazelnuts from Tasmania called Hazel Bray. And I was thinking about them for months after we voted for them, and I couldn't find them anywhere. And then through this period of lockdown, I just happened upon them on social media, and they send their nuts around. So we've been ordering these fantastic hazelnuts. So where there's a will, there's a way, Angela. And I hope that answers your question, because there's nothing more challenging than a veggie box with a mystery box surprise in there. It's usually some sort of tuber. And I get DMs. People send me a photo of like this random vegetable and say, what is this? I got this in my box. And it's fun for me to do, to be like, oh.
So I've got like the perfect companion to the fruit and veg box from your local, whatever it is, so local supplier. The perfect companion is your book, because you can be like, I have this random vegetable and I've never cooked it before.
I need to put you under my employ, Alice Pryor, because you have like sold the shiitake out of this book. Absolutely, yeah. Anyone that you know that's getting a veggie box will definitely benefit from a copy of my book. And even if they're not getting a veggie box yet, this might be the way. So, but do support CSA, support your farmers markets, if you can, and agitate, because if there's only a supermarket around you, then you can continue to encourage them to improve by voting with your dollar, sending them emails. I know you're a very engaged and active audience. So if you want it, you will ask for it and you will get it.
Absolutely. Okay, so hang on. So I'm gonna do one last question.
Okay.
I know we are too busy talking and not busy enough answering questions. In your opinion, what is the vegetable that is misunderstood, or miscooked the most?
Okay. Right now, I'm going to say eggplant. I think that people are undercooking their eggplant. And so when they're serving it up, it's often too astringent and can upset people's tummies. It is a nightshade. So cook your eggplant for longer than you think. My favorite way, foolproof way of cooking it is to slash into it crisscross and cook it face down in a preheated tray with a bit of oil. Even salting it a little bit first, because that helps to break down the cells. It's not a thing about bitterness, which I talk about in the book. It's more about the cell breakdown, as well as seasoning the actual flesh. And it's so meaty. It's fantastic as a meaty, meat-free Monday alternative, eggplant. The other ingredient is mushrooms, and that's not a vegetable, it's a fungus. But I will say that people are cooking mushrooms wrong, and a lot of kids, it's probably one of the most sort of maligned vegetables when it comes to asking kids what they don't like. They'll say mushrooms, and that's because often they're sogified. So when you add fat to a mushroom, you're locking in and trapping in the moisture inside it, which in a way can make it really spongy and mushy. So think about, there's two different ways that you can cook mushrooms. One of the ways is the more traditional way, which is in a dry pan and let the heat and the moisture evaporate out and the outside to caramelize before you add any fat and other liquids. The other way, and which is especially functional and really good for wild mushrooms, which are in season at the moment, is to add a splash of liquid to the pan and let those mushrooms continue to cook down on a really high heat until they do break down a little bit and do caramelize on the outside. Mushrooms have a very different cell structure to vegetables, so they don't actually become mushy no matter how long you cook them for. So that's, foolproof. So again, just don't add your fat until you're happy with the color of the mushroom. I think that's probably good advice there. I love a good vegetable ramble. You can tell.
That's a great tip. I have to say, I'm not a huge mushroom fan, but my oldest son is. It's pretty much the only vegetable he eats, which
is awesome.
I mean, it's strange because I don't like them, but I cook them for him because that's what he'll eat, because that's what parents do, right?
I love it. Well,
vegetable that they'll eat.
I don't know if you're already doing this, Alice Pryor, but if you cook big cup mushrooms upside down in the oven, just with nothing in them, no oil, nothing, dry them out for about 15, 20 minutes, not say 10 to 15 minutes in a moderate to hot oven, and then cheese, herbs, garlic, put it back in and cook it again, and the cheese, herbs, garlic will all melt in and flavor up the mushroom, and then cut into that, and it's like a veggie parma or veggie kind of. I should mention, actually, because I sound like a real vegetarian right now. I'm not fully plant-based. We eat a bit of meat and a bit of fish at home, but we're probably about 80-20 now. So, and I think that a lot of parents and people are looking to integrate more veg and eat a little bit less meat and fish. So that's why this book is very much reflective of that kind of veg curious rather than full veg. But for every recipe, I've got a full veg alternative as well.
Excellent. We did have one last question, which was just around organic vegetable, whether you preferred organic vegetables for health. If you wanted to take a couple of minutes to address that, otherwise we could.
I'm happy to. I've got nowhere to be. The nut's down for a nap, so I've got. Mama's on the loose.
You've jinxed yourself now, though. Jinxed yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. So in terms of, there are a lot of schools of thought on the whole organic question. So I will say this to you. So there are like lists of the clean 13 and the dirty dozen. So they're always good to look at. We do our best to buy organic vegetables more so for taste rather than nutrition, because they tend to have, you'll find heirloom varieties or the just the general. I think a lot of organic growers, if they've gone to the effort of getting organically certified, then they're probably putting a lot of care into the way that they grow those vegetables, so the flavor is better. And what we've learned through our research is that taste is nutrition, actually. So there's an academic in Queensland, Eugenie Rohrer, who's looking at the way that the taste buds indicate to us what nutritional benefit there is to the food. So if it tastes good to you as a fresh food, then it's probably more nutritious. That's why I keep going back to it, but that's why tomatoes in summer are so sweet and full of life, because that's the time of the year when they're at their most nutritious and sweetest as well. So our bodies tell us what we need. So I'm very anti-rules. Shed yourself of the guilt and the shame. If you are feeding your family vegetables, that is a fantastic place to start. Hands down. If you can't find organic vegetables, if the organic vegetables that you find at your local shops look sad and limp and less tasty to you, smell like nothing, packed in cling wrap, and you see something that's conventionally grown and looks like it's vibrating with life, and you get better at that the more that you look at it and the more that you kind of, it's like riding a bike, right? Go with your senses and don't let rules stop you from living your best life.
Love it. My organic tip is always just, if you're buying apricots, buy them at the farmer's market, because apricots at the supermarket, I mean, no offense to supermarkets, but there's something wrong with them. They're grown because they store better than what the variety,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The farmer's market ones taste like the apricots we ate as kids.
They do. And I always go with my nose. So especially for stone fruit, for anything, even things like carrots, really fresh, vibrant orange carrots that smell sweet will taste the same. If they don't smell like anything, it's either because they've spent too long in cold storage, so they've absorbed all the other fridge smells and lost their own, or because they're just kind of a bit lackluster in flavor as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Look at all our tips. Everyone will be eating vegetables.
Good.
That's
my
the
work
plan.
here is done. Signed off. Don't even need to publish the book anymore.
Yeah, we're done. Well, so on that, obviously, buy the book. I've been pushing it the whole time.
Thank you.
But also, you have a great Instagram account, which is it's Alice in Frames, isn't it? Your tag.
Yep.
Your handle, rather.
Like the glasses, I mean. I'm not putting myself against frames.
I get
Alice in Frames.
Alice in Frames. Well, I could tell, my fangirl moment. I watched MasterChef the season you were on, and you were called Alice, so I was like, well, that one's my favorite. And you had awesome glasses, and you just have this fun attitude, and it's very much how you actually are in real life. So that was a great revelation for me. But yeah, it makes the Alice in Frames makes sense, was kind of the end of that ramble. But people should be following you on Instagram, because there's always great tips there about various vegetables. And I know the first lockdown you did a whole series around the sad vegetables in the bottom of the vegetable drawer. The ones that you open the drawer and didn't realize that you still had that weird lettuce or whatever it was that you'd forgotten to cook. So people can scroll back. That's my recommendation. Scroll back and find some of those posts if you've got a sad carrot or a sad potato or something. But you putting great stuff up every day and inspiring people with the food that you're cooking at home.
Thank you.
And that you're a parent, you understand the struggle we're all going through, despite being a foodie yourself, right? You get the struggle of balancing all of the parenting stuff and then still getting the right stuff into the kids
100%.
3 times a day.
Totally. And I have so many more people contacting me now about baby-led weaning, about how do I get my toddler to get more into food and all those sorts of things. And I have some suggestions if you would like me to give them to you. So suggestion number 1, my favorite book on the subject is by Ellen Satter. It's called Child of Mine, and it's a fantastic seminal work on baby-led weaning before the EAT term was really even kind of coined. And in terms of baby-led weaning, or even child-led eating, the most important thing is that we can't force our kids to eat anything. All you can do is serve it up, and they choose what it is that they eat. And the less attached you are to what they're going to eat, the more they're going to eat. So the best way for you to remove that attachment is to not cook them separate stuff as much as possible, to cook the family meal, whether that actually means cooking the sort of things where everyone can pick what they want, so that there again is more agency for the child, like, you know, taco nights and sanchoy bao and various kind of, you know, arrange it yourself hand food. That works a treat. But for us, the most important thing is that no matter what we're doing throughout the day, we sit down as a family and we eat our meal together, because our daughter sees us enjoying our food, passing things to each other across the table. She will feed us. So she'll give us a forkful of something, and, you know, we might give her a forkful of something else. And it's a real opportunity to connect. And all of the research says and shows that there are 3 things that are going to lead to more uptake in the intake of new foods. And they are, number 1, exposure. So how many times a child is exposed to a new food. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to go in their mouths. It can be as simple as having it on the plate. It can be just smelling it, touching it, squishing it, throwing it on the ground, whatever that is. And so that means if it is new, just give them a little bit so that you're not attached to them eating it, you know. But also exposure could be something like through phenomenon, learning more about it, finding out a new fact, just talking about it around the table without feeling like you're doing it because you're manipulating them, just because you want to learn together. So exposure 1. Number 2 is role modeling. So again, that's why sitting down is so positive, because they want to see you eating that way. Ideally, they want to hear that their favorite sort of athletes and stars and things, that's why they're used in so many different campaigns, because that resonates for kids a lot more than what their parents are saying. But most importantly, and it does come back to parents, is that there should be non-food based rewards. So don't say things like, you know, if you eat this, then you will get this. If you eat your broccoli, you will get your ice cream, because all you're doing there is you're making the broccoli be the thing that they have to get through in order to get to their reward, being the ice cream. So it's a real kind of, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You know, you're making a rod for your own back with that kind of conversation. The best connection, or the best, I should say, the best reward comes back to exactly, I've given it away, connection. It comes back to just having conversations at the moment with their families, with feeling like, oh, I ate this last week and now I'm tasting it in a different way. And oh, isn't that cool? And, you know, the curiosity, kids are naturally curious and they naturally do want to learn. We just need to give them the space and make them feel like they're part of the conversation, not that they're being forced into anything. I've actually gotten rid of the conversation around, well, you just have to try it, just give it a bite. Get rid of that, because that's showing that you don't trust that they will get there at some point in their own time. Trust that they will get there at some point in time, and you will be building and cultivating a positive relationship with food, not just for now, but for their lifetime. And just know that this too shall pass. It is 100% a phase. They're testing you. They're tricksters, and they will get there. And if you are worried, then there are some fantastic pediatric dietitians that you can reach out to. We have one actually on Phenomenon, Miriam Raleigh, who you can find on Instagram as child.nutrition. The Curious Nutritionist posts some fantastic stuff. Foost posts some fantastic stuff as well. All Melbourne based, all incredible, people that I think about, that I think have some really great ideas. The Nutrition Guru up in Queensland, I'm sure you know. So Tara, she's got Baby Guru, and I just love seeing people in our network putting out beautiful, positive information. So I hope that I'm able to continue to do that as well. And I'm so grateful to you, Alice, for giving me the platform to do that with you today.
Oh, thank you for coming
I'm
to
off
join
my soapbox now.
Oh, no. Thank you for coming and joining us. I always often think, despite the work that I do, parents out there should know that we all have the same journeys. Like, there are all times when our kids are just like, they're not trying whatever this thing is that you've cooked. And the important thing for me is always come back to just making dinner an enjoyable experience. So if they don't eat it, they don't eat it. We move on. Like, I'm not going to spend, like, as parents, we have enough guilt and enough stress and enough whatever. You don't need to add making dinner a battleground with your kids to that list. And if dinner has become a battleground, then you should seek out help from, like, a pediatric dietitian. Go speak to your GP, because no one wants that. We want enjoyable experiences with food. And there are people out there who are professionals in helping you get to that point, if that's where you are right now. Otherwise, enjoy vegetables and food and exploring them with your kids without the guilt and without the pressure on yourself or on them.
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
I think that's a great moment to finish up. And so everyone who's listening, so last week we had Dr. Priya Alexander talking about the rainbow plate, that's a kids picture book. We had Alice today talking about the In Praise of Veg, and that'll be out. When's it out, Alice?
It's out in stores in November, but it's on pre-order. You can pre-order it right now. Head to your favorite independent bookshop or head to Booktopia. You've got a link, so you can link people to the thing.
Yes, we can. And what we will do is there will be an email that'll go out to all of our subscribers. It might not be this week, but it will be in August, that will have the links to all of your things, but also the things that the book that Priya had last week. And next week we've got Saffron Howden, who is one of the editors behind Crinkling News, which was a newspaper for kids, and she's going to be talking to us next week about kids as citizen journalists and media literacy and those sorts of things. So it's an entirely different topic, but it's all in the Parents' Voice umbrella. And her book is so she's just submitted the manuscript, so I don't even know whether she's got a release date. So we've kind of had this gamut of a book that was released earlier this year, yours is later, and then Saffron's is even further down the track. It's a nice little progression there. So thank you so much for joining us, Alice. And I hope that everyone watching on Facebook has enjoyed our rambling chat that's gone 15 minutes over when we said it would go, and that you run out and buy the book, but at the very least go and follow Alice and learn more about vegetables and about how you can make them exciting and interesting in your house, even the sad carrot from the bottom of the drawer.
Amen. And about how you can just live your best life.
Yeah, exactly. Your best vegetable life.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm going to end us on live stream.